Hey there guys, what's going on? So we're pushing up towards the end of February now, already somehow, though that time cannot come soon enough as December's beautifully sweet little Christmas carol-filled winter wonderland has become a desolate, rag-wearing Russian wasteland of sorts. No offense to all the obvious Russian fans I have out there, but I can't take all this Eastern Bloc beach weather. Anyway, as I, along with many desperate denizens of the Northeast, huddled closely to any parcel of heat that's available, this time period does at least make it a very good opportunity to stay inside and listen to all kinds of new music. And luckily in this early part of 2015, we're getting treated to some pretty quality material that's most definitely worth investigating, in my own humble opinion at least. And today's installment in particular, well, it's cool, yes. That's obviously a given, but it's also something a bit more special than just your ordinary conception of what one might consider a fun new release. For one thing, it's a completed project that took 15 years to reach its ultimate finale, and it also represents the final notes of the legacy of one of gospel's greatest blues-inflected bands. It also represents the first true gospel record I've ever really reviewed here on my channel, which, in terms of branching out, always kind of feels pretty good. Today we have Roebuck Pops Staples, patriarch of the Staples Singers, father of the brilliant Mavis Staples, as well as several other very talented siblings, with his last chapter entitled Don't Lose This. Recorded in the very late 90s, a bit before Pops died, well into his 80s I might add, this record puts the final touches on a musical legacy that was a forerunner not only to the world of gospel music, but where blues ended up as well. But before I give away any of my thoughts on this one, let us begin with a review. From the first thump of the drums on opening track Somebody Was Watching, Don't Lose This establishes itself as an album that excels in giving the listener exactly what's at the core of its heart. What I mean by that, per se, is that there isn't digging through layers of lyrical interpretation, tracks of instruments, or having to explore the deeper meaning of what someone's artistic integrity and meaning is supposed to be exactly. This record is just soulful music, bleeding heart soulful music coming straight at you, plain and simple. Listening to Don't Lose This is a great pleasure because on one hand, it feels like the type of buried gem classic one finds stuck within the stacks of well-loved LPs at their local record shop. Something that could have just as easily come from the early 1960s or 70s, simply waiting for the chance at rediscovery, but also it doesn't sound attached to and dated to that time either. It certainly harkens back to that classic era of blues and gospel and soul that Pops and the Staples Singers grew famous for, but its message of kindness, spirituality, and the sheer will to overcome feels just as relevant now as they did back then. And part of that timelessness is certainly due to the production of Wilco's Jeff Tweedy, along with the ever-growing talent of son Spencer on the drums, who not only helped revive Mavis's career, but also really goes out there and provides just the fresh hand this record needs. His style doesn't ever try to go overboard and do too much and add too much arrangement and make it this cluttered cacophony of things. Rather, it just spruces up the arrangements, adds a few little touches here and there, and just leaves it up to Pops and his daughters to do the rest. And really, when you listen to this, they really know how to do the rest. Even being well into his 80s at the time of recording with intermittently failing health, Pop Staples still sounds as coherently vibrant as though he were just right here standing with us today. His gentle croon is maybe a little softer and more potentially fragile, but it rarely shows alongside his cutting, classic bluesy tremolo guitar lines and those familiar effortless harmonies with Mavis and other daughter Cleotha. In fact, these are probably the moments when this music shines the brightest. Just getting to hear these three voices together, singing every bit of the spirit in the church and just wringing them out, every bit of that personality, and just bleeding them into these tracks. And I'm certainly not a religious person, but the uplift and the pure soul within these songs is undeniable. And while it is a sad thing to think that Pops as well as Cleotha have departed this world since these tracks were first put to tape, it's pretty remarkable to think that Don't Lose This gets to stand for the rest of eternity as sort of an ultimate farewell letter to them both posthumously. Not to mention it's also one last iteration of the core that was the Staples Singers, and I'd certainly consider that legacy not only intact, but shining beautifully, brightly, brilliantly well on ahead thanks to Mavis and Pop's last decree. Don't lose this, Mavis. Don't lose this. My favorites from this one are the Sunday sermon-y feel of Somebody Was Watching, the bluesy declaration of the so hot it's smoky, nobody's fault but mine, the toe-tapping full arrangement take on the traditional Will the Circle Be Unbroken, as well as the gorgeously soulful tracks Sweet Home and Friendship. Music listeners, as well as the realm of music itself, are truly blessed, no spiritual pun intended here, when we get the pleasure of a recording like this surfacing. Because life really, truly is that thing that happens when we're busy making other plans. Yet Mavis Staples held on to this for her father, waited over a decade, 15 years, and found the perfect accomplice and producer in Jeff Tweedy to finish it with once and for all. That's the kind of thing that if you sort of believe in that stuff or not, to me it's the kind of thing that's just meant to happen, and we get to reap the reward of it. I give Pop Staples and his final record and statement, Don't Lose This, a very, very strong 9 out of 10. But that's it, and that is all for me here, guys, with my coverage and album review on Pop's Staples and his last record, Don't Lose This. This is, of course, the digital side of it, but I will be hopefully doing a vinyl unboxing on this record as well in the near future. It is definitely yet another favorite of mine for 2015. You can go check more stuff out on it. They've set a nice little website up for it. You can go check out more info on it there. You can order it on CD. You can get it on vinyl. It's available through Amazon, retailers. Hopefully your local record stores will get the right idea, see this, and will carry it as well. I imagine it will be a little bit of an undersold, kind of an undernoticed kind of a release, but if anything, or anything I can say or do helps get even another person or two to go out there and listen to it, I think that's a great thing, because it's one of those kind of records and pieces of music that just deserves to be appreciated by every single person that bothers to turn their ear towards it. And just, it's such a passion project that deserves the recognition of the work and the creativity and the years in the making that it took to get there. And it's just, it's simply beautiful. And as I said before, I'm not a religious man. I'm not someone who really listens to gospel music and things like that, of that nature, but really when it harkens back to those old times of early era 50s and 60s, getting right down to the traditional Will the Circle Be Unbroken, which Pops taught to his daughters and stuff, was like one of their early staples, no pun intended, of their music, and just those kind of songs and where they're rooted and things that almost feel like they're part of like the civil rights movement and the things that they went through and brought up to this modern era. It's so timeless, and it's just brought right through this loophole and this wormhole, if anything, and it's such a beautiful thing, and I can't highly recommend enough that everybody goes out there and listens to it, whether you've ever touched a gospel record, whether you haven't, whether you like just blues music. It's got something for everybody in that genre and in that neck of the woods who like that stuff. So get out there, guys. Go and support Pop Staples with Don't Lose This. It is a great little album. And keep it here, because we got more great stuff coming at you real soon. So stay tuned.